see the connection between the sky and the land. It's a beautiful one all the time. I'm not saying anything about the traffic. There's no point saying it.
Well, aren't we so happy that we don't have traffic?
We're not even saying anything. Every city has its own peculiarity.
Abuja will say, oh, we're in traffic. What's traffic? What's traffic?
Oh, no,
it will let up, although there are places like Karu, if you're going to the outskits, those places really have bad situations. So
then you don't say there is no traffic in Abuja. You still say there is no traffic in Abuja like Lagos. It's not in Abuja like Lagos. Then you would know. That's what you're saying. And someone is even trying to shout
that there is FCT. Want to beat us.
Congratulations.
Don't be angry.
Yeah, so whatever it is, enjoy. Look, every city has its own peculiarities. Well, Abuja, for now, has not that kind of traffic. For now, but hey, let's enjoy the beauty of this lovely city. It's actually a good place to be, but when you're not used to all of this calmness, you just want some energy, When you come to Abuja, you hear welcome to Abuja. Any other city
when you get to Lagos, this is Lagos.
They look like guy, open eye. This is Lagos. You have arrived.
But Abuja, we're very calm city. And we tell you, welcome to Abuja. It is the nation's capital, it's the seat of power. It's where everything happens, but really calmly. Everyone likes to take it easy because, there's no hurry in life. You just have to do what you have to do with what you have. It's not that big a deal. You don't have to not sleep and be awake all through the night and running around. This war between Abuja and Lagos is going to continue.
As I was saying. So what is happening today, Kayla?
We have quite a lot of things happening today in the nation's capital, and you might want to look out for all of them. They'll be coming up on your screens right now. Starting off right here, of course, in the FCT. The FCT minister has been very busy. Almost every day there's something that he's doing towards infrastructure development. He has received some knocks, but we'll talk about that later. I hear that's some of the things that we're going to be talking about because it's put him at loggerheads with someone who's not very happy with what he does, and he has made some statements that have made Nigerians a little worried about the future. But the reconstruction of the Quetta-Yobu Road is going to be happening in the Kwali Area Council. Remember that the FCT minister had promised that every single area council in the nation's capital will be a beneficiary of a good road. One road construction at least. So we're having that one, the reconstruction of the Quetta-Yobu Road in the Kwali Area Council today.
And also happening today, again, one of those interesting things, the reconstruction of the Quetta Youth. I think that's also one of those things that we're having. But then the Minister of Water Resources has a media briefing on the update of flood across the country. Don't forget that sometime around November, December every year, we hear word from meteorological agency and the rest of them that, this is the number of days, number of amount of rain we're likely to have. What's the update? That's what the Minister of Water Resources will be bringing to you. And of course, we'll be talking about that later. And our business this morning will be looking at how to attract FDI to Nigeria. That's also part of things to look forward to today. In the meantime, let's take a look at the papers.
Today is the 4th of July. These are some of the papers we have for you this morning. Let's begin with the Nigerian News Direct, talking about the Lagos floods. Residents, workers, commuters lament economic paralysis as Lagos State government calls for calm, promises swift response. Trash in flood water. Lagos government takes action against culprits. Area boys arrested for extorting 100 naira from pedestrians at makeshift bridge. All of these stories you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Next is the Vanguard newspaper, which has a picture of the floods right there on its front page this morning. Floods in Lagos, the picture says. But the main story of the Vanguard newspaper is healthcare crisis, high cost of drugs to persist as local production flops. a look at the riders this morning. Only 29% of drugs consumed in Nigeria produced locally. 70% drug importation puts more pressure on forex. Importation responsible for high cost of drugs. Pharmaceutical sector unique. Deserves special policies. PMG man. Delete import duty levy to ensure our survival. That's according to Adeosun. FG should introduce reforms utilized in petroleum sector. That's ascribed to ACPN. Find the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Look at the front page of the Daily Independent, which also has pictures of the Lagos floods right there on its front page. Flooded Okpeleyeru Street at Abuja as a result of heavy rain on Wednesday, with vehicles submerged. For the lead story of Daily Independent, FG unveils model to realize planned $1 trillion economy by 2030. Details continue on the inside pages of the paper. The Blueprint newspaper, Nigeria has bought about 20 trillion naira fuel generators in 2023, according to the federal government. Find details of that story continue on the inside pages. The Daily Times has this one: release Nnamdi Kanu for peace to reign in Southeast. Senators beg Tinubu. Say economy, social life in Southeast has suffered enough unrest due to continued incarceration of IPOB leader. Obasanjo denies discussing Kanu's release with Southeast governors. That's the lead story of the Daily Times newspaper this morning. The Daily Trust is drawing attention to LGBT. Nigeria signs $100 billion Samoa deal. What does that mean? Look at the front page. Look at the riders. Clerics, CSOs, furious. It's not about same-sex marriage, ministers aid. National Assembly didn't consider agreement, as according to Rep. Yusuf. Details you find on the inside pages. The Guardian newspaper, circular economy. Worries as e-waste import rises. More Nigerians resort to used items. Oh dear. Well, there's some infographic on the front page. More details you find on the inside pages of the Guardian newspaper this morning. New Telegraph, Akpabio blames Woza suicide attacks on security intelligence failure. Story you find on pages 2 and 5. Harps on preventive security. Senators stress use of modern war facilities. Return of suicide bombings worries can. Business Day newspaper leads with this one. Nigeria slams 7.5% VAT on $57 billion crypto market proceeds. What does all of that mean? You find the details on the front page continues on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Those are some of the papers we have for you today.
So we're going to start with the Daily Trust newspaper because this is one that a lot of people, there's two perspectives to this story. There's the part where the government is trying to explain what happened with this deal and what the clauses actually are. And then there's the fact that many people, especially clerics, are very upset about. And that is this $150 billion Samoa deal. More on that from page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. The clerics and CSOs, according to the story, are very furious. And the minister's aide is to explain that it's not about same-sex marriage. And Representative Yusuf is saying the National Assembly didn't consider this agreement. Just so we can get a little bit about what was said there. Clerics and rights activists, civil society organizations are furious following the decision of the federal government to sign the controversial Samoa deal. And according to them, it has some clauses that compel underdeveloped and developing nations to support the agitations of the LGBT community as conditions for getting financial and other support from advanced societies. That's what the issue is. But they're saying that this was misinterpreted. We're hearing that from the minister's office. The budget minister speaking on what the budget minister said, his spokesperson at DBE says that the article is misleading. The article does not represent the content of the Samoa agreement signed by Nigeria, and that it supports universal access to sexual and reproductive health commodities and healthcare services, including family planning, information and education, and the integration of reproductive health into national strategies and programs. So they're saying it's a misunderstanding, but you can go make up your mind, get yourself a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper and get to page 4 so you can see that one and understand what exactly is going on there. I know that.
No, let's just remind everyone that on January 7, 2014, the same-sex marriage prohibition bill was signed into law by the then President Goodluck Jonathan. It criminalizes, it's not just an offense, it criminalizes public displays of affection between same-sex couples, and it restricts the work of organizations defending gay people and their rights. So let's put that out there. It is when that law, any attempt is made to decriminalize, then we can now carry on our own protests. But I'm also, something concerning, equally concerning, is on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And this has been in the news consistently almost all week, about the cost of medical health, the cost of health care. The Vanguard newspaper tracks it as healthcare crisis, high cost of drugs to persist as local production flops. Definitely something concerning. As far back as during COVID, and I think maybe even sometime after, we had conversations with the DG of the NAFDAC, National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, that Nigeria is at a disadvantage in the area of local production of drugs. Now, this report on the front page of the Vanguard corroborates what she said years ago, that only 25% of drugs consumed in Nigeria are produced locally. In fact, she further went on to say then that the active agents of most of these medications are imported. Now, it also says 70% of drug importation is putting more pressure on Forex. You want to go, I got into a shop when I wanted to buy one of these paracetamol brands, and they were telling me 5-figure this thing, Haba, for waiting more than 10,000 naira to buy paracetamol. What? You know, so I was scandalized, and this is not too long ago, maybe just a few months ago, and that is then. But even now, you can imagine that it's a lot more expensive now. I mean, you get into everyone who knows anything is complaining. We've spoken with the former president of of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, PSN, and he said that even he himself went into a shop, a drug that he would get for something between 5,000 and 7,000, he was buying for 20-something thousand. And definitely, and that's for those who can afford it. How about those who cannot afford it? People have said jokingly that this is not a good time to fall sick because of course, the obvious. The NHS isn't even as, comforting as it ought to be. So this is a concern. I am happy that the federal government is looking in that direction one way or the other. But the cost of living is one. The cost of staying alive, the cost of healthcare, definitely something very concerning.
I mean, there's a recent story about it where there are waivers that the federal government is giving for pharmaceutical products. It's supposed to boost local production of pharmaceutical products and whatnot. But, I just want to give out some kind of public service announcement to people. If you work in an organization, try and find out what your HMO package is. Don't just say, oh, healthcare is bad. Oh, no one is. Find out. A lot of people work in this country. So if you work in an organization, find out what your HMO package is and find out if they work, and then blow the whistle if they don't. I have a beautiful testimony. I wasn't feeling too well not too long ago, and I had some money, but I wanted to know how my HMO works. And I was pleasantly surprised. I'm not just saying that because I'm on TV or because we're in Channels TV. It was wonderful. They were able to give me my medication. They were able to, get everything done for me. And I was taken care of immediately. And I remember going to meet the HR person here, and I was like, oh, it actually works. And I've been telling everyone, you don't have to, our own HMO works. So wherever you are, wherever you work, find out what the HMO package is. Find out if it works. If it doesn't, then blow the whistle because your salary has been taken for it, for that particular purpose. Yeah. Then when it comes to the cost of healthcare in the country, primary healthcare really needs all the help it can get. You can help as a Nigerian. What do? Go to the primary healthcare facility in your neighborhood. It's time for us to now start telling what's happening in our neighborhoods. Go to your area, find out what the primary healthcare center, where it is, find out if it works. If it doesn't, blow the whistle. Blow the whistle. Get other people to talk about it, because we cannot keep pumping money into things that are not working. Money is being made available for them to work. So if they're not working, something is going on, and we have to get to the bottom of it. So be a part of this. Let's make our country work.
Speaking in the same light, Dr. Wabua that we featured, he said, look, even this, and I'm glad that you talked about the HMO. I really am. Because he said that some of these HMO service providers, I think he even specified public health, that some of them do not service HMO package handlers well because of how their monies come and all of those things. Well, I don't know about it because HMO works for me. So if it doesn't work for you for one reason or the other, please do what Kayla said, because people who, there's that thing that, is it Chamberlain that says it? Eternal vigilance is the price of freedom.
Yes.
If it works, let's make it better. If it doesn't work, it's about time. Some people get paid for all of that. With that said, it's time for us to get into the nitty-gritty. Our first conversation this morning is to take a review of how far so far with the flood situation in Lagos and other parts. In the meantime, that's the much of the papers we can take this morning.
Are here. Major parts of Lagos is affected by the downpour. From mainland to Lagos Island, nowhere is spared. Iyanoworo Inward's third mainland bridge is completely taken over by flood.
God damn.
Toluwashe area of Bega, Oroshoki residential area is also submerged. Ikotu Road is not left out. Tricycle operators are trying to make their way through the water. Egbeda Akunwajo Road is overflowing. Some motorists struggle to drive through the flood. Ogba leading to Wemko Road is not so bad, but as a result of the rainfall, traffic is already building in some parts like Agege, Inward Ogba, and it's congested. While residents of the state are appealing to the government to clear the drainage more often to avoid flood disaster, there's also the responsibility of managing waste better.
I mean, it's such a precarious situation there in Lagos and in many parts of the country. Where is the Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency? You would think that you'd be hearing more from them. But while we wait on them to speak up on this situation, we have joining us right now via Zoom, Korode Kesha, the Federal Controller Works in Lagos. Madam, it's nice to have you on the program with us this morning.
Good morning, Kayla. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good too.
What's the situation in your neighborhood?
Things are improving. Yesterday there were news that Lagos is kind of submerged. And then we went out on the road immediately to see how we can defloat most of these roads, especially the federal highways in Lagos. And then we discovered that most of the things happening are due to the activities of humans. And there is need for human beings to know how their activities impact negatively this time around on the environment. And that's the result we have everywhere in Lagos and everywhere else.
So when we talk about the activities of humans, I want us to be able to hone in on that. Because it's not just about dumping refuse and blocking drainages, isn't it? It's also an issue of building on floodplains.
It goes beyond that. Let me take, for instance, the approach to Third Mainland Bridge. By the time we got there yesterday, we've been understudying that place, trying to know the root cause of that. It wasn't so. you understand, before. But in recent years, we've discovered that it has become an annual occurrence. And when I got there, I tried to study the situation to profile a more lasting solution this time around. And then we discovered that the field that is adjacent to the road, there is a football field that is by the side of the road. That field is way higher than that road level. Are you with me, Kayla?
Yes, I am.
The field is high, but because human beings want to cross from the other side to this side, they decided to cut down that side of the field, and then they tore the barricades so that they can have access into that field. Water used to flow to the other side before, that mega seaside. There's a big outfall around that Bariga side, over there. But because of what human being has done, the activity of humans, the water decided now to be coming down to the main carriageway, because they now made that place the lowest level, because people dug it so that they can use it as an access into the field. And when water is coming, it's not coming alone. It's bringing all the mud, the sand, everything with it, thereby clogging all the weebles and the access to the channels that is meant, or that are meant to discharge this water to the final outfall. That's what happened. And immediately our team of our rescue team moved into action. We started unclogging those weebles by removing all the sands, the dirt, and the garbage that we found there. The water went down immediately and the road became free.
Let's talk a bit about preventive efforts. Because I know a lot of work has been happening since yesterday with all of the headlines and with everything everyone has been going through in Lagos. But what are some of the preventive measures put in place to ensure this doesn't happen in the first place?
That preventive measure starts with you, and it starts with me. I tell people, government does not live in a neighborhood. For instance, where I live, the federal government, so to say, the Aso Rock is not here. President Tinubu is not here. My honorable minister is not here. Our leaders are not here. But I live in this environment, and it's my primary duty or responsibility to make it tidy. Before government comes to the rescue, the people will have suffered. So, way forward is self-discipline, self-advocacy. Let's all be self-disciplined, knowing fully well that our activities or inactivities negatively impact on us as an individual, as a society, and as a nation. The other day you saw how somebody brought in garbage from the room, from their house, and then pour it inside the flowing water because they felt the rain is falling. This rain will take it away. It's definitely taking it away to somewhere that is going to go and block the path of the water. And that water is going to recede back and come and stare us in the face.
Well,
several times people have had to run after people on the road. When people drink Coke, when they eat pop-off, when they eat gala, they just throw it on the road. I ran after somebody the other time and he said, "Madam, get away. What is the duty of lawman when they sweep it away?"
Well, madam,
so that advocacy starts with you, it starts with me, and the self-discipline.
Well,
most of these drainages, what is happening is that they are blocked.
Well,
they are blocked.
Well, all of that is understood, madam, and there is no doubt, that the people have their own responsibilities. But just a quick one: it's not only in Oworo that the flood took over, as you are very well aware. For the rains also dealt with places like Berja, Ikeja, Ogba, and some other parts of the city, Agege, Yano, Oworo, just as you have mentioned, Ijegun, Isheri. Any idea what could have been responsible for the flooding in these areas? Some of them, as you said, rightly so, they didn't have a history of such a level of flooding. And now this.
I've told them, number one, Lagos is not far from the sea. We all know that. It therefore means that Lagos needs to do more as citizens. As government is trying. Lagos state government, they are trying. Federal government is doing all that we can. We awarded the silting of most of the roads, federal roads in Lagos, the silting of the drains along the roads. What else can the government do? Government is awarding roads. We're paying contractors. Our drains are being awarded for the silting, and we're doing that. If you go right away now, you will see what we are bringing out from Awolowo Road, from Falomo, from Osborne. It's massive, it's huge. How does those things, how did they get there? Those are not refuse dumps. How did they get there? We have enough provision for drainages. We have enough provisions for culverts. At Yanowo, it may interest you. There are about 5 culverts there. But if you see what we're bringing out from there, yesterday, it is not, that's not government doing that. It's you and I. It's until we get to that self-realization that our activity impacts on us. Our activities impact negatively on the society. Somebody that carelessly threw gala nylon on the road does not know that it's not only going to be the only one that will reap the negative effects of that. So if we know that this thing is going to come back and stare us in the face, then let's do something about it.
Is it the same thing in Ogun State, madam? Is it the same thing? Is it the same story in Ogun State? Because we understand that Atonota, Sheshe, Ifo, Sangota, and Ijebode areas in Ogun State were also submerged.
I can only speak for Lagos. Okay. That's what I see. I'm telling you. Okay. So the person will have to talk about it.
All right. I just wanted to. I mean, so it's some Lagosians don't begin to feel that.
I'm sure humans were generally the same. Our attitudes are the same.
Perhaps the challenge here, madam, my apologies. Perhaps the challenge here, going by what the question Kayla asked, one of the preventive measures a number of people would have asked, maybe if there was an effective local government administration in place, some preemptive actions may have been taken. The local governments are closer to the people, to the localities, and they could have been able to see some of these things ahead and jump ahead of them. Do you think that could have been an effective mitigation strategy?
You're very correct. You're not far from the truth. And local governments need to do more. And I'm sure that they are seeing the need to do more now. But generally, majority of the blame is with the people, please. I live by the canal. And if you see what is being discharged into the canal, when I look through my window on a daily basis, it gives me cause for concern. It's not the local government that pour it there. It's the people. It's the people.
Well, there are sometimes, madam, my apologies, sometimes the government does the needful, desilts, take the garbage away from the roads, and they leave them by the road. Well, we've heard that sometimes they leave it there because they want the garbage to drain. But then before the road, the refuse or all of the things that they moved were done draining out, another rain comes and wash it back into the same drainage. So
it doesn't happen again. That used to be in time past.
Okay.
Now we're monitoring one another. If I'm driving and I see something, I know the agency to call. I call them the next day, they've evacuated it. Like the ones we are parking on Osborne Road, because it is raining, we're parking it out, and we discovered that it was going back inside. We were cutting them away, wet like that. We were taking them away, as wet as they were.
It's pretty frustrating, I must admit, and listening to you talk about this and checking people and making people do the right thing and changing cultures and behaviors of people can be very difficult, but it must be done. In many parts of the world, the idea that you throw refuse on the street it sounds like madness. I think you might even get arrested for doing something like that in some parts of the world because of the idea that you would put yourself, put other people in danger, no regard for your environment. But the change, that changing of people's mindsets, I'm going to ask you, what other ways, apart from chasing people, because you will chase people till you are tired, what other ways, are there other creative ways that we can get people to change their attitudes when it comes to refuse disposal?
We're in talks, just like you said now, we're in talks with National Orientation Agency so that they can increase this awareness. Let there be more advocacy on the radios, in the televisions. Let there be more advocacy to let people know that their action has repercussions. And the repercussion can be devastating most times, just like we have it. I was at Lekki yesterday. I went on site visit to Lagos Coastal Road. Everywhere was flooded. Most property owners were not able to come out. The cars were submerged. And that's what I tell people. It's not government. We will have been affected before government will come to our rescue. So let's just do what we need to do. Let's that self-discipline, self-awareness, self-advocacy, that this our action is going to negatively affect us as humans, as families, as individuals, as a society.
I mean, sometimes when changing attitudes and trying to get people to do the right thing, when that doesn't work, I'm not a big fan of penalties, but you may have to resort to penalties. Are there penalties in place?
But let there be more, like the people that emptied their garbage into the flood. I want to believe they do not know the implication. So let there be more advocacy first.
What are the implications? What's the punishment for it? What's the penalty for it? Can you hear me?
I'm not in a situation to say that. I'm not in a situation to say that. I'm an engineer. Don't forget, we just want to build infrastructure.
So let's talk a bit about that infrastructure, since you can't tell us about the penalties, madam. The infrastructure issues, because people, of course, have that responsibility, and you've talked about, that's what we've been talking about. But are there infrastructure issues that cause the flood? Because like in Abuja, for instance, we've had situations where we've had to demolish so many structures that are on waterways, despite whose ox is God. Is that something that's going on in Lagos as well?
I'm sure you heard in the news, Lagos state government is doing a lot on that. A lot, and I give kudos to them on that. So many buildings were demolished at Maryland, so many buildings were demolished at Lekki for standing in the way of water. So they're doing what they should do in that aspect, and we give kudos to them. They're complementing what the federal government is doing everywhere. If you build on water panel channels, if you build on water pans, you don't have a right to live there. That's what it means, because water is going to find its level, and in finding its level, it's going to affect the society and then the country at large. So we cannot allow the insensitivity of a few of us to now affect others that are sensitive to their responsibilities.
Okay, madam, lastly, for me, I mean, talking about, engineering and all, there are those who would say that there is a significant contribution of the slow pace of construction of roadblocks due to construction, ongoing construction in different parts of Lagos to this situation. How do you respond? I
didn't get that, please.
Construction.
Can you please come again?
Is it possible that construction, road construction, which of course naturally leads to blocking of some parts of the road, could also have contributed either minutely or significantly to the situation?
I don't think so. For instance, in all the places you mentioned in Lagos, where is any road construction contributing to that? We're doing Lagos Coastal, is not contributing to that. We're working everywhere. I don't think so. We're not insensitive. There's no construction work that should lead to that. Adequate preparation, you understand, will have been given to that. That's why we do planning before we go to the road. So no road construction can impact on water channels. It's not possible.
All right, well, that would be a good place to end it. And I wish you all the best. I know it's going to be a lot of work ahead, but good luck with all of that. And we wish you all the best in all that you do.
And I wish you quite the same. Thank you for having me, Kayla. It's nice to be with you.
Madam Kesha there, the Federal Controller Works in Lagos, giving us an update on what's going on with the flood situation there. Everyone, please be safe and be a little bit more careful. We'll be right back after this. We'll be talking about local government autonomy. Stay with us.
The conduct of local government elections in virtually all the states of the Federation has become mere coronation of candidates of the ruling parties. It is time to stop the coronation and conduct proper elections. State governors should allow the state independent electoral commissions to have greater capacity for independent action. Many of the state electoral commissions have no functional offices in the local government areas in their states and cannot recruit their own permanent staff. In some states, the state electoral commissions are either not properly constituted, have no security of tenure, or their critical functions have been taken over by government officials. I therefore appeal to FOSECOM to take the bull by the horns. While there are legal and financial constraints to your operations, your independence does not necessarily draw from statutory or financial provisions alone. The courage with which you discharge your obligation to protect the integrity and credibility of elections is the most important determinant of success. There are no shortcuts to the discharge of this enormous responsibility.
Well, the latest in the conversations around local government administration in Nigeria is of Rivers State. Of course, that's still along the other conversations of the financial and administrative autonomy of local governments in Nigeria. A good number of people still hold the fact that so many local governments are still either under one caretaker committee or the other in the country. So it's definitely a concern that is not just going to go away. Something that has to be discussed and discussed. All agitations, all advocacy. In fact, just yesterday, Kayla, I was at this meeting and people were talking about all the things that need to be done. We have been talking about local government autonomy since about the same time this republic began. And we're still talking about it now. This how many years now? 25 years now. We've been talking about this same thing. How difficult really is it? I mean, sometimes it just depends on what side of the law you're looking at. Is it supposed to be that difficult, really?
And the importance of local governments is being focused on now more than ever before, because now we understand as a people, when it comes to economic development, security, and all of the things that we hold dear, it has to start at that local level. The only way that we can get things done is to make sure that at local levels, administration is properly done. So that autonomy and the need for them to do the job properly, even these floods in Lagos, everything has to start at local levels. And that is why this conversation is very important.
I don't think we are even, people generally know how important a local government administration is. We'll be speaking with someone who will be giving us some guidance. Because when we talk about security, we have been told by several security agencies, security consultants, that the local government is the first line of defense. We're talking about healthcare. Primary healthcare is supposed to be right there. We talk about education. They have their own responsibilities. And also, let's have this conversation this morning with Itiako Ikpopo, who is the Director General of Akande Association of Local Governments of Nigeria. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. Ikpopo. Now, there are a number of things, perhaps, that people do not understand about local government administrations in Nigeria. And is it the reason that the autonomy, administrative and financial autonomy of local governments is has dragged for 25 years in this republic?
Nigerians, I'm sure that after yesterday's conversation, you got a bit of understanding of the challenges. I think that the bigger challenge of understanding local government problems, understanding where we are as a nation, are we where we should be? No. There's healthcare, infrastructure, security, education, particularly basic, it concerns local governments. We're not there yet. The reason we're not there is because the local governments across the country are not functioning in full optimal capacity. There's a fracture.
All right, well, Mr. Ikpopo, we can barely get, clarity of what you're saying. Let's take a short break and quickly handle that part. We'll be right back with you to take a look at the situation again. We were talking about, the flooding and all, but hey, let's listen to this.
As I speak, before I came in, we're working on community policing. You and I agree that across the country, there's a form of security provided by community indigents. It's called vigilante. So all we are saying is empower them, provide for them. They become an arm of government police. I don't know if you understand. So there's a lot. There's a lot. I'm not sure I can exhaust all we want to do here. But what I know is that the national president, and myself, and our team are able to look at the issues and begin to address them. The NGF is our core partner, and we intend to hit the road working with them to ensure that there's stability. And our prayer is that as we unfold our program, the media is there for us. We work with you. What I would say is that the states that pilfer local government funds, we know them and we are engaging them. And in any event, the law is also telling them, when the bell is ringing in the morning for you to go to breakfast, they will ring it 3 times. The EFCC bell is ringing, NFIU bell is ringing. So for those who are involved in it, we are saying it is not good for the development of our country because
All right, well, we have Mr. Ikpopo back with us here now. Itiako Ikpopo, Director General, Algon. Mr. Ikpopo, can you hear me? Oh, dear. Well, interesting. One of the concerns that we have had over time about this issue, Kayla, if you remember, is that, I was at that meeting yesterday, as I said, and it was about local government administration to which I was invited. In fact, I think along the line I saw Mr. Joel Jiro there as well, the DG of NLC, so it was like a kind of collaborative meeting. So one of the conversations, one of the issues on the table was that even elections in local government administrations are hardly even attended by the voters. We've had conversations with officials of INEC who say that by data, about 1% of the voters are the ones, who participate in the elections. Mr. Ikpopo, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning.
Oh. Okay. All right, wonderful. So let's get quickly into it. One of the cities, one of the areas of states in Nigeria that is talking about local government elections now. Let's see if that can be some kind of guinea pig for talking about local government administration in Nigeria. Rivers State has announced that they're going to go to the polls. And the elections into local governments administrations are rarely attended by people, the voters generally. In order of priority, the local government administration elections is the least that is attended by the people. So how do you respond to that? What can we do to change the paradigm? Can you hear me, Mr. Ipopo? Oh, dear. Yeah, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I was while we wait for him to get himself sorted out, elections at local levels. So it's brought the conversation about state INEC, right? So elections that are conducted from the state offices of INEC and the amount of independence they have to be able to do proper elections at those levels. Many governors have been accused of taking over the process and being warlords and czars in these places, so no one can ask them any questions. No one cares about, or care, maybe not care, but no one really wants to make him upset. So it's almost as though a lot of things at the local levels depend mostly on the whims and caprices of these governors. But we're supposed to be seeing how that is changing, and the importance of local government autonomy financially and judicially, in the judiciary rather. The importance of that independence is supposed to be the main focus. And I'm wondering if Mr. Ikpopo can hear us right now. Can you hear us, sir? Okay, so I know the network is pretty bad, but just so before we move on, let's talk a little bit about the independence and the financial autonomy at local levels. Is that something Algon can help?
If it's something Algon can do it.
Is that something Algon can ensure? That local government autonomy, financial autonomy, how much advocacy from Algon are we seeing to ensure that this happens?
Well, I think, sorry, network is really bad, but I think I get the meat of your question. The issue of local government autonomy is a huge basket, and we're not going to be able to take them in bits and pieces. We've been in this advocacy for over 12, 13, 15 years. And when you talk about elections, security, education, all of it is part of what the local governments are talking about. And
is this the same fate of local government administration? We can't even talk to an official of local government, you know.
I mean, it's really unfortunate. We really wanted to be able to get to the DG of the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, so he could give us some perspective on the challenges that they're facing at that level. Because when you listen to local government chairmen and they're talking to you away from camera, the kinds of things that they tell you that they have to go through, even with allocations, we are hearing from some of them that even when allocations come to them, they return it to they don't have to tell you. You return it to the governor so that you can have peace of mind, you know.
Yeah, you remember the time when the federal government under the former President Buhari held the funds of the local government administrations and said that, you know, they were going to pay directly to the states, to the local governments through the NFIU initiatives and all of those things. When the federal government paid the monies into their accounts, the information that we got yesterday at that meeting was that the local governments didn't touch the monies for 3 months. Why?
Yeah.
They were waiting for instruction from the governor. Yeah. And I'm trying to imagine, I mean, you put 200 million naira in my account and I'm waiting for instructions from you.
I understand the concept of having to work together. Yeah. Because the state, you're not at loggerheads with each other. It's not the local government versus the governor. Working together, yes, it can help the synergy, can get things done. Especially deputy governors. You know, when it comes to local government administration, rather, a lot of deputy governors are actually saddled with internal security in states. Most people don't realize this. So deputy governors are supposed to work with local government authorities, ensure that they get the funding gets to them and they're able to use it, especially in the area of security. We've been talking about Goza for a very long time. The movement of people from one local government to the other, being able to circumvent the authorities, the security agencies, these things happen at local levels. And if the local government is functioning properly, then we can actually have a situation where they point out people. You won't be able to strap a baby and show up at a wedding without people understanding that this person is not from here, what is going on.
Well, Mr. Ipopo, we'll have to bring you into the studio one of these days, but if you can just give us a minute or two of what you intend to tell us this morning about your response to Kayla's question. Are you still there, Mr. Ipopo? Okay. All right, well, let's just say that it's just one of those days.
It's one of those days.
Part of this, as we wind down on this before we take Business Morning on Sunrise Daily, the conversation along flooding also went in the same direction when we spoke with Madam Kisha the other time, saying that, look, if the local government, agreeing that if local government administrations were as effective as they ought to be, they are able to take proactive action. We know that rains would come. We know the days that the rains will fall. What are weather reports for? It's to tell us, okay, it's going to rain on this day, and we know exactly what to do. In fact, there's a likelihood that you even know the quantum of rain that is going to fall on that day. We know the preemptive actions that need to be taken. So what are we doing with all of that information? This is what a local government administration would naturally have taken advantage of, because it's their job to desilt, to clear the drainages, to go to people's homes, to ensure that proper and needful things are done. When they are not done, it definitely is something that is very, very concerning.
Remember when we were talking recently about sanitation exercises that we used to have when we were kids?
Exactly.
Now, so another issue that we're discussing in the country right now is cholera. It's called the poor man's disease. And it was local authorities at the time that were ensuring that the sanitation of local governments were done every Saturday. In fact, you wouldn't. It was. Let me tell you. It was a situation where you didn't even want to look bad in front of the sanitation officers.
Not just in front of them, in front of
your neighbors. So you would come out and clean this place first.
Yes, before they
even come, and then they're like, our place is so nice. It's not as dirty. It was something that everybody was a part of. We were talking about cholera not too long ago. I always like to bring that example. Sanitation officers, they would go and pour kerosene into the public toilets, and then they'll tell you to turn on your taps. Any tap that the water smells like kerosene, they will know that there's a leak. Something is happening between the dump for your and then wastes. For your waste and your water. There's some kind of connection. So they know where to start fixing things from.
Absolutely.
These things were done at local levels, and it's important that we get back there and even improve on that as we go forward.
Well, we'll definitely find the time to bring on our guest into the studio, but we have to thank him at least for the effort. Itiako Ikpopo is the GG of the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria. Time for us to take Business Morning on Sunrise Daily.
Well, thank you, Aya. Well, hello, welcome to another trading day right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Definitely, this morning, the rains are not as bad as yesterday morning, so I hope the floods are receding fast and we get some sunlight. But let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now. Starting with the oil market, we see oil prices fell in early trade today, reversing those big gains we saw the first part of this week. $86.67 a barrel, that's what we have for Brent, down by a big 0.77%. So we're seeing profit-taking from some investors in that market. The U.S. grade, that's also down bigger, 0.86% early trade this morning. But we know U.S. markets are closed today for the July 4th holiday. Let's get to the FX market. Yesterday, FX liquidity at the NAFEM window depreciated with a total FX turnover contracting by 48% to $114 million. The spot transactions were completed within the 1,445 naira to 1,535 naira range, and we see weakness there, 0.49% for NAFEM, close at 1,512 naira to the dollar. NAFEX 1,513, just about 1 difference there between both markets, also down 0.28%. To other matters now, we see the Dutch Entrepreneurial Development Bank, FMO, Nigeria's first city monument bank, that's FCMB, have signed a $25 million Nasira Guarantee Agreement funded by the European Commission. This initiative aims to expand funding for agriculture, youth, and women-owned SMEs in Nigeria, which are traditionally regarded as being too risky by banks. The Nasira program, which replaces the need for collateral, has proven that these groups are not riskier borrowers. This effort addresses the country's high unemployment and economic challenges by offering small loans to help individuals start and grow their businesses. In addition, FMO will support FCMB with a $60 million syndicated loan, enhancing the bank's SME loan portfolio. During the 9th Nigeria-European Union Business Forum, the EU ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS, Ms. Samuela Sopi, emphasized the bloc's role in fostering private sector investment for economic diversification and job creation. The Technical Assistance Program will also support 15 early-stage agri-tech businesses contributing to food security and zero hunger goals. To the oil market, I would say the Petroleum Tanker Drivers branch of Nigerian Union of
Official decision.
And Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, they've concluded its election and sworn in a new set of national officers to manage its national secretariat. The team is led by National Chairman, Comrade Augustine, and the election comes after a controversy in the body's leadership and was taken to the courts, and the judgment by Justice Anua of the National Industrial Court in Abuja, which annulled the previous election held in Ibadan in October. The success of the election now paves way for the body to focus on salient issues which affect the sector, according to the NUPENG National President, Williams Aporia.
As a union, we are still engaging Dangote to ensure that we are part of the process. You know, Dangote is just starting; they just started operation, and discussions and engagements are on to ensure that NUPENG, is also part of the distributive process. It's just unfortunate that again, government has continued to shift, the opening of those refineries. The last time we were informed that the Port Harcourt refinery was ready and was going to be reopened. But again, they came to also shift the date. So far, we have been told that before the end of this July, they will come on stream. So we are all hopeful. Well, government knows that the roads are bad at this point, and these are rainy season. Without good roads, tanker drivers can, move their products across. So we also use the opportunity, to also inform government that most of these roads should be given some palliative measures, so that the drivers too can also move freely and distribute the products.
All right, to our first conversation now. See capital importation data for the first half of 2024. Saw a big appreciation, about 210% from the amount received in the fourth quarter of 2023. And we see FPI $2 billion, and we see FDI lower at $119.18 million at this point. Let's talk to Mr. John Wajumogu. He's a special advisor to the president on trade, industry, and investment. Join us from our Abuja studio. Great to have you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Williams, and good morning to everybody out there.
Fantastic. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're seeing that data for capital importation. That rose by 210% in the first quarter of 2024 from $1 billion recorded in the fourth quarter in 2023 to $3.37 billion. Big move up there. But we see portfolio investment led with $2 billion, making up about 61% of the total. So we're seeing hot money there taking the huge chunk of investments coming into Nigeria. How's the government seeing this?
Now, well, it's a positive indication. And you mentioned the term hot money, which is reflective of the nature of capital. Capital is fleet-footed and would go into situations where there is potential for profit maximization. And in that vein, the systemic approach that the His Excellency, the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had taken in addressing Nigeria's economic issues, which are multifaceted. And in being that the issues are multifaceted, the administration took a systemic approach to address these issues. And one of them is addressing issues of macro stability in form of monetary policy interventions, in unifying the exchange rates, looking at the phasing out of the energy subsidies, as well as the interest rate interventions as well, which aim to remove distortive impacts on the market. And those interventions signaled positive confidence to the investment community, which then culminated in the increase in hot money, as you said, into the economy, because they see a positive outlook in the Nigerian economy, and hence the year-over-year growth that we've seen from a capital importation standpoint, and also from particularly on the FPIs, as they are quicker to move.
And yeah, we keep talking about keeping the multinationals, in the country at this time. We've seen a couple of them leave, and definitely we need more FDI, at this time. So talk to me about how the government is seeing multinationals that have left, so far. Multinationals are still here at this time. What is the plan to actually keep those here and also help the local producers here in Nigeria at this time? Because some say, if the multinationals leave, then that's an opportunity for the local producers. But how are you seeing this, so far?
Okay, so the first approach, as I mentioned, was to address issues of macro stability, because those are issues that are more pressing and needed to be addressed first. And we've seen the positives of those interventions, like as we mentioned earlier, on FPI. Now, the other aspect of the government's approach is then to bring in those fiscal and targeted interventions that are much more enduring and that could encourage the mobilization of FDI into the country, which takes a little bit more time, but tends to stay longer and is not as fleet-footed as portfolio investment. And in doing that, the government is looking at those areas of the economy that has strong transformative impact, of which the so-called multiplier effect is huge. Following the indicators that you had mentioned that showed that capital importation had increased year over year, that culminated with a positive projected outlook from Fitch, the rating agency, which increased their rating on Nigeria, and as well as the IMF, which projected a growth of 3.3% over last year of 2.9%. While this trend is good and is indicative of the journey that the country is taking and signaling positive confidence to the investment community, this growth is not enough. It is still not sufficient because it is at the rate of our population growth. So it is not enough to raise the living standards of a youthful and growing population. So we need a dramatic shift in the level and sustainability of our economic growth.
All right,
to address the needs of us. So to do that, we're looking at areas of the economy with that huge multiplier effect. So where are those areas? Infrastructure. With the announcement of the President's Renewable Hope Infrastructure Fund, which is underpinned by massive economic corridor, backbone logistical investments, seeks to reduce the cost of production, which then it's for manufacturers or industrialists in the country is a positive impact in terms of lowering their cost of production, because cost of transport is one of the huge inputs to one of the huge cost elements that businesses bear. And then also trying to stimulate demand, the government has set up the Credit Consumer Corp, which looks to provide consumer financing to Nigerians so that demand can be stimulated and the products that are being made by these companies can be affordable to Nigerians. And in the energy sector, which is another huge cost input for manufacturers and industrialists, there's been a number of reforms aimed at increasing the supply of energy and reducing the cost of energy. So the reforms and interventions in the infrastructure space through the intermodal and enabling commerce infrastructure that the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund is focusing on, as well as the energy reforms that are being made, tackles two key issues that are one of the biggest hurdles to growth for industrialists, and while opening up opportunities for more investment into these key transformative areas of the economy.
Right, and talking about, industrialization, we did hear Mr. Dangote say that industrialization cannot happen without stable power supply at this time. He did talk about improved power supply, but we're seeing Band A customers, they're still going to have to pay more. We saw a new tariff hike recently. So what we're seeing is getting more expensive, to get energy in the country at this time, and definitely that's going to impact on the revenue of most of these companies. So what's the plan here to push for affordability? Because prices are going up in almost everything, in the country. What's the plan to bring some kind of affordability for Nigerians?
Well, part of the challenge in the energy sector is that demand far exceeds the level of supply. And for the longest time, one of the biggest challenges that have held the energy sector back has been the non-cost reflective tariffs. And that had distorted the workings of the market because distribution companies will tell you they are not earning enough revenue to be able to invest in their network and increasing the uptime of their networks, which then results in lower volume of electricity that is delivered to consumers. In order to address that issue, one part is putting in a market reflective tariff and looking at bands of customers who are in a position to be able to afford this higher level of tariff. Remember, Band A customers represent those customers that has been determined to be able to absorb this higher increase, and other vulnerable communities are unaffected. So one part of addressing that problem was obviously addressing the tariff issue to make it more cost reflective so that investors may be more willing to come into the market. And as more investors come into the market, you'll find investments going into increased generation, going into expanding the network and making it more robust, which means that the current situation that we have where 13,000 megawatts of power, we have capacity of 13,000 megawatts of power, but we're only receiving 4,000 to the end customer, will be resolved because there are more investments to expand that network, make it more robust so that the distribution losses, the high level of technical and commercial losses that is being experienced in the industry and have turned off investors for years will be resolved through increased investment. And on the other hand, there's also reform in being able to make sure that all consumers in Nigeria are metered through the Presidential Metering Initiative. Metering is a very key component of the electricity market because you can't measure or control what or improve what you don't measure. So being able to have every consumer metered will reduce the high levels of commercial losses or collection losses that distribution companies are experiencing, that it's making it hard for them to make the required investments to have a robust system that can deliver electricity to all consumers. So the combination of price, tariff review, metering, and specific interventions in looking at increasing the capacity of the transmission backbone collectively would see us experiencing higher levels of power supply. And with that high level of power supply, it will actually reduce the cost of electricity, because the unit cost of electricity will reduce, because you are essentially using the same infrastructure to transport higher volumes of power to consumers.
All right, well, this administration is over a year now, and we've heard countless manufacturers complain about, the cost of production, in manufacturing. In your view, when do you see a time in this administration where we can see manufacturers actually see that cost of production is actually going down? When do you see this actually happening realistically in Nigeria?
So, we have to understand that the challenges that we are facing compounded over time. And I think we need to get away from the mindset of low-hanging fruit, immediate gains, and start thinking more of the medium to long-term approach, so that we can begin to do the enduring and prepare ourselves for the road to productivity and manage the strategic evolution that we need to get our economy where it needs to get to. This is not saying that the government is not mindful of the immediate issues that every citizen is facing, because, as an economist said, in the long run, we are all dead. So these issues are very near and present, are very pressing. And that's why the administration, the palliative measures of the administration in being able to address the very present issues that particularly vulnerable communities are facing in terms of providing cash transfers to our most vulnerable citizens, and also by on the supply side and the industrialists, by providing concessional financing to below 10% to industrialists, so that cost of capital will be lower for people who need to make investments or people who are driving businesses. So the government is mindful of the present challenges that people are facing, but at the same time, government has to put in interventions that are sustainable and enduring, and they don't happen overnight.
So do you see this happening in the Tinubu administration? Do you see this happening?
Yes.
Cost of production going down
definitely.
In President Tinubu's administration. Do you see that happening?
Definitely, because we have to have, while we'll have a 8-year or 10-year horizon, it's not like we have to wait till the last year for the total benefits to manifest. The benefits manifest incrementally. And what often happens is that when you get to a critical point, the impact then becomes exponential. What you just need to do is unlock some of the issues, some of the challenges that are putting down all this pent-up growth can be unlocked. And the investments that are being made in looking at some of the strategic and transformative areas of the economy, such as infrastructure, technology, energy, what it does is that by opening up these areas, it provides an enabling environment, an enabling infrastructure that private capital and businesses can ride on to even make more investments and unleash more growth. And when you build a road, today, it opens up, while creating linkages between commercial centers, it also provides an evacuation route for businesses to utilize for the free flow of commerce. And that happens could happen within a 1-year cycle, it could happen even longer than a 1-year cycle. So within the first term of this administration, a lot of these investments will start manifesting. Now, it's not only we have to wait till these projects are completed. What it does, and I mentioned this earlier, is the signal, the confidence it gives to investors. Because investors, are looking to the future, right? They're profit maximization entities. So when they see there's a signal that the environment is going to be more conducive, they start making their investment today to take advantage of that better opportunity that's going to exist in the future. So that's part of the benefits that comes with a clear plan, is by signaling to the investors what government is going to do, and not only signaling that, but following it with actual action steps.
Right.
And we've seen that with the major infrastructure projects that are currently ongoing.
All right, we hope the multinationals have left, they actually come back at some point. The ones here stay, and the local producers actually grow. Thank you so much. Great having your perspective, Mr. John Wajumogu, Special Advisor to the President on Trade, Industry and Investment. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, Commodities Market Update is next. Do stay with us. All right, we see oil production in Nigeria has become an Achilles heel for Nigeria's forex inflow, and now the NNPCL has declared a state of emergency on oil and gas production. Join us for this conversation is Dumebi Oluwole, a senior economist with FDC. Join us right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Thank you so much.
It's another state of emergency declared. How for food? I don't know if this is the first time we're having for oil and gas production.
I mean, I would say at least since my career started, this is the first time I'm hearing of it. And I would say that when you look at the content of the speech that the NNPCL CEO gave, Mile Kyari, you realize that right now it's not something to be exactly worried about, because when you, it's just like the tab where we say, oh, the fight against corruption. That's kind of like what this is. And it's simply, right now, it simply means nothing until we see some level of action regarding all the war and all the fight against what is, significantly hampering Nigeria's production. But to even put it in context, if you ask us, so what is a state of emergency really?
Right.
Yeah, and it's just a situation where either the government or a government entity decides to regain control or something. So they suspend their original constitutional procedures to regain control of their processes. And when you put that in the context of oil production for Nigeria, what exactly are we regaining control of right now? And it's just, we need to regain control of our production, of our oil coming out of the ground. And what exactly is stopping?
Getting rid of theft.
Exactly. So what exactly are the things that are not making this thing happen, which is, all theft and vandalism? And if you even want to look at the part of the players in the oil sector, what exactly is disincentivizing them from bringing in more cash, especially in upstream oil and gas sector? You realize that it's still the same issue, oil theft and vandalism. And per the NNPCL's CEO statement, you realize that he did mention that Nigeria has the capacity to conveniently produce about 2 million barrels of oil every day. And you realize that that's even, it's pretty easy for us to do considering what we've done in the past, right? These issues of oil theft and vandalism, if you check the track record, you realize that it only became a really big issue within almost about 10 years ago. And every year, even in our budgets, we now account for it. It has become almost like a constitutional thing that we now account for in Nigeria today. And regaining control of that process is something that we cannot overlook right now. It has become imminent, right? And now it has gone beyond just saying you want to regain control, but let's see it happen. Let Nigeria's oil production become what it's supposed to be, so we can earn the forex that we need to substantially support the economy.
Was a refining problem.
Exactly.
We didn't have the refineries to refine our oil, which we had in good amounts. But now we have refineries coming up, we don't have the oil.
Exactly.
That's what we're saying.
So the thing is, aside from when the conversation, you can think of it like trying to treat the symptom of an illness. So you're trying to take everybody's attention to the symptoms rather than the illness itself, or the root cause of the illness itself. At the times where we had conversations about refining capacity, refineries are defunct and stuff, we were still having issues with oil production. those issues were still there. But the problem is that we never addressed those issues. We kept patting them on the back till it became substantially what it is today. And right now, it's not still something that cannot be curbed. It can be curbed if we put our minds to it. And this is basically, I think I'm going to make something like a bold statement here this morning. We can't keep joking around with the economy. And the reason I'm saying this is because whether we like it or not, crude oil is still the mainstay of Nigeria's economy today. We're trying to ramp up non-oil production, non-oil exports, and all of those things, but it's still not as substantial because the key sources of non-oil export earnings were still having issues there, and the revenue-generating part of our economy, the fiscal part, is still highly dependent on oil. The fact that all state governments enjoy today is highly dependent on oil revenue. So if we do not focus on boosting our oil, which we can still do that, even though the world is talking about transition from that, but we can still produce enough and sell and generate enough revenue. And unfortunately, when you look at the multiplier effect of when we don't produce enough oil and we don't generate enough revenue, you see that the government's coffers are lean. And then there's a scramble to generate more revenue. And then you start seeing the government taking up a lot more tax reforms. They're increasing taxes for businesses, increasing taxes for importers, increasing levies, increasing taxes even on consumers. And eventually it goes down to affect people negatively. Cost of living is higher, living standards are poor, more people are falling below the poverty line. And unfortunately, there will come a time where all of this bottled up, all of this that's been bottled up will become a public outburst. Because at each point, the federal government is breaking the social contract between itself and the Nigerian people. Right. And before you know it, public discontent will become a thing. And it will keep brewing till there's public outcry. And a very good case, a very good example or pointer to this is what is happening in Kenya today. And even though we don't want that situation in Nigeria, it's somewhat inevitable if we do not start getting things right. And a very good pointer to this, again, is the fact that we do not see the lean fiscal coffers on how the government is spending. It is one thing to try to generate revenue and build your fiscal space. Right. It's another thing to actually cut down on unnecessary spending.
Cut down spending.
And we've not seen that.
All right, we're definitely hoping for that. And when all the refineries actually come on stream, I hope we don't become an oil importing nation. Hopefully.
We keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you so much, Dumebi Oluwole. It was great having you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
All right, that's it from me on Business Morning. We'll give you a summary of a stock market close later on today. Thanks for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. I hand things back over to the Sunrise Daily team.
This matter cannot be resolved legally. And if we continue with the legal wrangling, that it will continue to cause the insecurities because the legitimate demands has been hijacked by criminals, undesirables, and all manners of elements who have used it to perpetrate their own nefarious deals on the rest of the people of the Southeast. Nobody in the Southeast likes what is going on. People cannot go out of their houses on Mondays. People are maimed and killed and all that. And some people are roaming around, killing even security men in the name of looking for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. And Nnamdi Kanu himself also confirmed to me last Monday that he never made any request of that nature that anybody should go and kill people. In fact, he was very pained that the Southeast is suffering because of this.
Well, that and a number of other issues are on the bill this morning in our conversation with Laolu Akande, former aide to the Vice President. He's also the host of Inside Sources. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good to see you in Abuja.
Well, thank you very much. I'll say the same when you come to Lagos. Okay. Well, that's one of the issues to discuss. And it will seem like talking about this fellow Nnamdi Kanu is a seasonal kind of thing. Talk about it sometime and then it goes off sometime. Talk about it sometime and it goes off sometime. I remember the conversation with the current Attorney General who said, look, let the judicial process run its full course. Yeah. And now some people, of course, as you have seen right there, are asking the president to intervene. What does that say, really? Because there's those who will be wondering, on the one hand, it's a matter in the hands of the judiciary. On the other hand, it's a matter that politicians are asking the president to intervene in. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, it's a very sensitive issue because not only does it have implications for issues of law and order, it also has implications, and even more implications for issues of politics, and all of that. So there are those who say that, look, I mean, this man has been accused of certain very grievous allegations. They will have to be proved in court. But, I mean, these are the charges. These are serious charges, of crimes against the state, against the country, against the very idea of our unity. So those are very serious charges. Now, so those who make that argument insist that, look, these things have to be tested out in court, and people bring all kinds of other things that were attached to it, that because of what you did, what he said, this is what happened. This is the kind of the breakdown of law and order that could be traced to some of those things. Now, the other angle is the political angle. So a certain part of the country, the southeast, the leaders especially, feel that, look, this is a political problem. We can sort it out. Let this man go free, and there will be guarantees, that there wouldn't be any kind of recurrence of what it is that has happened. Now, so those are the two sides, and clearly both sides have very strong, even compelling arguments. Now, so where I will rather stand, this is my own personal view, is that I think that Mr. Nnamdi Kanu should be bold enough to take out these things in court, but apparently he's not, and with the senators now meeting the Attorney General, well, I think we should see the way it goes. But, you would have expected somebody with a kind of courage and the boldness of Nnamdi Kanu. You would have expected him to say that, look, let's prove these things in court. Let's go and, whether indeed broken the law. But I'm surprised that he's trying to get a political solution. I would have expected him, based on what we know about him, to say that, look, let's go to court. But he wants a political solution, and I'm told that he has even committed to any kind of conditions. I'm surprised by that.
Well, but what is troubling is the implications. The argument of the senators is, look, if you release him, we guarantee more safety in the southeast. Is this something tenable to you? It's yet to be proven. Because he has said that he has stopped the activism, but the crisis, the breakdown of law and order in parts of Southeast persists. There's another guy by the name of Simon Ekpa, who has actually said that, look, Kanu is out of the picture. Now I'm in charge. And he is continuing. So I don't see, I haven't seen the correlation of, of the fact of getting him released, how that one will lead to the peace in the Southeast. Because right now, he's saying, hey, stop all this violence, but they are not stopping.
I mean, I want to be able to talk a little bit about what Senator Inaya Baribe said in that piece. Right. Two things. He said this cannot, those were his words. He said this issue cannot be resolved legally. And he now talked about, he said there were legitimate demands that are being hijacked by criminal elements. These three things that he has said cannot be resolved legally. Legitimate demands and criminals hijacking that. these are very important statements that he's making. What legitimate demands? It brings to my mind the conversation between the need for self-determination and what he's been accused of, which is treason. Do you have any views on that?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, Senator Abaribe, Abaribe is a Nigerian senator that we all must dove our hearts to. He's bold, he's courageous, and he has the audacity to speak truth to power several times, and I admire that. But for him to say that these issues cannot be proven in court, I think that's exactly what I think can be done. And I think, Nnamdi Kanu should go and post a solid defense. A court process is meant to be fair, it's meant to be open, it's meant to be transparent. And that's why I said that I'm shocked that Nnamdi Kanu, the Nnamdi Kanu that we know, I'm shocked that he wants to get a easy pass. I think there's no such thing that it cannot be proven in court or it cannot be sorted out in court. It can be sorted out in court, and that's the position of the Attorney General, But now I see that they're having talks with him. The Attorney General said that, look, let's do this thing in court.
This concept of legitimate demand.
Well, it wasn't specific in that clip as to what is legitimate demand. But I guess, every section of this country has some kinds of claims about discrimination. Look, I mean, certain political elites in the north have started saying that, President Tinubu is discriminating against us. So everybody will always have those legitimate demands about, quote-unquote, legitimate demands about this country. This country is a potpourri of several cultures and peoples and ethnicity and languages. So you will always have those contentions. And that is why it behoves on all of us to see how is it that we can really mold this country and form it into a nation. It's an ongoing process. But to say that that is the reason why, somebody who is believed has broken the law severally, that is why he shouldn't face his day in court. I'm surprised. The man should get his day in court and make his arguments in court.
How about that third issue of some people hijacking the process and taking it?
Criminal elements hijacking in the legitimate demands that were made.
Well, just like any other, so when people want to protest, there are always the peaceful element that, look, we have a voice, we're not satisfied with what government is doing, so we want to exercise our right to protest, But it's true that oftentimes there are also hooligans that are lurking around the corner to make nonsense and to cause violence. So yeah, I imagine that there will be legitimate issues, but when you cross the line and break the law over and over and over and over again, like Nnamdi Kanu has been alleged to, I expect him to be bold enough to face the judicial process.
Let me take you back to the first issue that Kayla raised about the judicial process. The fact that so on the one hand there is that legitimate position, for using the word, of the federal government. Look, this guy has been accused of treason because of some things that he said and, riling people up and all of that, on the one hand. Right. On the other hand, is the consequence of his incarceration, the consequence of, putting him in the dungeons for so long. It is as a result of that some people from the same extraction as him are saying, look, if you don't free this guy, we will ensure that there is no peace in this environment. So perhaps that is the angle that some people are speaking from. You may be right to hold him because of the accusations that are being leveled against him, but then holding him down is also part of the reason for this and this and this.
I agree, and that's the reason why one would expect the judicial process to be quickened and fast-forwarded and expedited, and then government can consider pardon if he is found guilty, and if he's not found guilty, he goes home. I don't think that it is a good idea for us to truncate the judicial process. Guarantee that the judicial process will be fair, free, transparent. If that is guaranteed and even expedited, I think it should go ahead, and the government, in the exercise of its political discretion, the president who does have the power to pardon, can then, if he's found guilty, can then say that, we're going to give you a pardon, for the purposes of political correctness.
I mean, we have quite a number of other things to talk about, but I want you to be able to talk about the guarantees. If they say in the Southeast right now, the criminalization of everything, and then the inability of governors in the Southeast to rein in these people. We're hearing about military action and things like that going on, but the guarantee that there will now be a change in the way things are done. You mentioned rightfully, Mr. Simon Ekpa, earlier. What kind of guarantees can they give the lawmakers, everyone who's asking for? And just to note that in The Guardian today, former President Olusegun Obasanjo just says this release was not part of what I discussed with them. Which says that a lot of people are very concerned about this situation. What kind of guarantees can they give with the inability to rein in these criminal elements that have turned the Southeast into some sort of war zone?
Yeah, and I think it's something that is quite, a big burden, especially on the political elites in the Southeast. Those of them that are currently in government, those that are not, and the entire elite of the Southeast. It's the same way that I feel about whenever any part of the country there's a problem, the people, the leadership of those sections have a responsibility to sort it out themselves. We haven't had the peace, that you would have expected. If indeed, Nnamdi Kanu were still to be calling the shots, and then he has said, stop it, and this thing hasn't stopped. So I don't really, it doesn't make a lot of sense, except there are other variables that we don't know about, and so we're not sure. But it builds on especially the governors in the Southeast, working with the federal government, who has the responsibility for national security, to sort out whatever it is in the Southeast, do whatever it is to bring peace to that part of the country.
Well, very interesting that, we're talking about this, and of course, that issue that Kayla raised, that's right there on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. And, that leads me to the issue of the influence of the governors. If they have been unable to influence their people, so to speak, to the point that they can drop their arms. Again, as Kayla asked, what's the guarantee that they'll be able to rein him in, or any of his cronies,
or splinters, or people who may want to take advantage of the situation?
When the governors cannot ensure the peace in the environment right now.
Regarding information that is open and available in the public, we find no assurance at all.
Talking about governors are also expected to throw their weight behind the autonomy of local government administrations. Now, I think it was Governor Fintiri who came out and said, let me make it a bold statement that I am in support of local government autonomy. That's one down, 35 to go. So, like that. So, what do you see that happening? Well, given the influence that they purportedly enjoy from, their authority over the local government administrations?
Well, so there are those who argue that, look, we are practicing a federal system, and there are two, main parts to that, So there is the federating units, and then there is the federal government. So local government ought to be in that, ideological construct to be the business of the federating units, the states. So the federal government normally shouldn't have any problem. A state government can say, look, I'm going to have 10 local governments. This is how I'm going to run my local government. Another state can say, I'll have 5. This is how I run it. Now, that is what federalism is all about. The problem is, it turns out that for the most part, the governors have turned the local government to nothing. For the most part, there are those who are doing a good job, and we must always say that. But when you have a situation where, we all are witnesses to the outright destruction of the local governments on account, for the most part, of the governors, mismanaging their funds. So we have no option than to say that, look, how do we get rid of this problem? It is essentially, for me, a corruption problem, a misappropriation problem. So while it is true that, yes, under a federal system, you have the federal government, you have the federal units, and, whatever happens next in local government ought to be the business of the state government. But, well, look, that should continue. But to the extent that state government, in certain instances, not all, have turned the local government into complete nothing, we must say that, look, the autonomy in terms of how they spend their money, how they collect their money. Even the Constitution says currently that the monies are meant to go. The federal allocation of local government is meant to go to a joint account. So why is it a joint account? The federal government sends money to that account, and the state government sends money to that account, and then each local government runs on that. But we know that that itself has been sabotaged and been frustrated, has been made nothing, and so we must address the question of local government autonomy, at least financial autonomy, to be able to spend their own money the way they choose to, hopefully to develop their local governments.
Let's take a look now at another issue that is making the rounds in the news, and it is this discussion around Minister Wike and Senator Ireti Kingibe. Both people have to work together. For many people, they have to work together to move the FCT forward. But we're seeing she has complained several times.
Right.
Several times, including Channels TV, twice on Channels TV, where she said, I'm not able to reach him and I'm unable to talk to him. We saw her recently on another medium saying, this is just not happening and it's affecting the ability to properly govern this place. He may be building roads, in her view, he may be building roads and whatnot, but there are actual needs of the people, and as senator, I should be able to provide that. Then we're having Minister Wike on one side saying, I'm not trying to be friends with you. We already have friends that we can't even carry along. Let's talk of friends who don't want to be our friends. And of course, making that statement about 2027, that has had many people worried about the election process. What are you trying to say here, Minister Wike? Talk to us about this impasse and what you think should be the way forward.
Okay, I think that the first thing that I would like to say is to address the continued public displays and public issues that Mr. Nyesom Wike has been turning up. It's important that somebody counsel him and advise him. Look, if you look at the political dimensions, the political dispensation today, after the president, some will argue that Wike will be the most influential politician, the most clearly out there, which is not, it's not a small thing, in political calculation. But his behavior is becoming unbecoming. First of all, he goes on social media and wears this winter jacket, and he's dancing like a clown. And you have this engagement of his, this broad with his own governor. Somebody should tell him that, look at the projection, the trajectory of President Tinubu, who you are serving and who is clearly the #1 politician in the country. Did you ever find him behave in such a way that you are behaving publicly? Even when Tinubu had problem with Fashola, did you ever hear the matter on TV? Did you ever see any time either of them come out in the open and start to do all this kind of display? It's important that somebody speaks some sense to Mr. Nyesom Wike.
Some people might argue that this is just a difference of personality. It's who he is. It's how his nature is. And for that jacket, I will have you know that it's been cold in the FCT since Saturday last week.
Well, there is no way.
Be nice.
There is no way that any objective person wouldn't see the clownishness in that. Come on.
Is it against the law?
It's not.
Exactly.
It's not. And my point is that he holds a very enviable position in this country, but he's messing it up. Anyway, let's come back to the issue of him and Ireti Kingibe. No, I think that Senator Ireti Kingibe herself is making this to become such a very big deal. She is the senator. She has the, she's the one that represents the only senator in the FCT. I don't think she needs to have this kind of public, debate or disagreement with the FCT. Ultimately, she has her own responsibility. The minister is the minister. The minister's job is to run the executive arm of government. Our own job is to run the legislative. Now, if the two of them cannot agree, then there's no point making a public case of it. So I would have advised her that, look, you know what, you do your job. If you are known to do your job in the proper and the best way possible, Wike will be the one looking for you. But guess what? Wike is the one that everybody knows, says that, oh, look, this man has fixed the roads. Those roads have been there forever. He came in 1 year and he fixed it. So Wike is the one that has some kind of public acclaim. You are the senator. You haven't communicated with the people. What do you represent? You can't just represent attacking Wike.
Does the lack of synergy, does the lack of synergy between both parties affect her job in any way?
I think so. But I think she has to take responsibility for that, partially. Of course, Wike too, and Uspat have already mentioned, who is also making a mockery of his influence. He also has responsibility. But on this part, I don't think that Senator Ireti Kingibe ought to be making the matter. What does Senator Ireti Kingibe stand for in the eye of the average FCT resident? But they respect Wike because they see him fix the roads. Whatever we say about him, the man is known to getting things done. Senator Kingibe should try and work on our own brand and not worry about the public debates.
Let me take you. I know that we're closing momentarily, but let me quickly ask you this one, something that Kayla drew our attention to earlier on in the program this morning. It's on the front page of the Daily Trust that Nigeria has signed a $150 billion Samoa deal, and those who are connecting it with this LGBT issue. Well, what do you make of it?
Well, I think we have to get more details. I read the story myself this morning. It's not clear. Even the story itself couldn't say clearly what it is that is the problem.
Well, perhaps just because just one whistleblower is just drawing attention to it.
To the signing of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's even reported that the Minister for Budget and National Planning, former Governor Bagudu, has said that actually
there was this kind of
So we need to see that deal. It has to be made public. Let us read it and then find out what it is that is happening. Right now, I don't think we know enough to make any assessment.
So any idea what to expect tomorrow on Inside Sources?
Oh, well, tomorrow we're going to have, thank you for that. Tomorrow we are having...
no worry, you will pay for the promo.
We're having a major discussion on the future of Nigeria's foreign policy and the image of the country. So we have ambassadors gathered and we asked them the question that, okay, is it because we didn't have an ambassador in South Africa? Was that why? Did that have anything to do with the way that our president was treated?
Don't ask all the questions yet.
And then of course, we also discussed the issue of how come it is that we don't have ambassadors in all of our embassies, at least like 8 months since they've been recalled. So these are the things that we discuss tomorrow on Inside Sources. 11:30 a.m. by the way.
Well, as I said, marketing is going to be speaking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.
Akande is a former aide to the Vice President. And that's the show today. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a splendid day.
Well, before we go, 2 things. Today is Independence Day in the United States, so happy Independence Day to you all.
4th of July.
Yes, and then in the UK today, the Tories will be facing Labour. So good luck to everyone there. I'm Kayla Megwa. Have a great day ahead.